was the wake of the Monday morning. Men, women and children dressed and ready for the day's task. With a smile, everyone stand waiting at the famous Nyanya Bus Rapid Transport Park in Abuja. And suddenly, the sound of the blaster leaves no one no choice to choose to live or to die. It was a rush hour and the timing was right. More than 70 people have been killed in a bomb blast on the outskirts of Abuja in the first terrorist attack on the Nigerian capital in 2 years. Eyewitnesses have said it was the worst bomb blast in recent time. Whoever the attackers are, they've become a menace to the Nigerian society, a terrorist organization that strikes with such ferocity that national and international attention is drawn to a puzzling question. Who are they? And why do they do what they do? Welcome to Africa Today. I am Mike Okwoche. You can share your thoughts and prayer for the affected blast victims on Twitter at TVC Africa Today or send an email to africatoday@tvcnews.tv. A report on the blast from the site and Africa Today will continue. But first, we must warn that viewer discretion is advised.
According to eyewitness accounts, the bombers drove a car into the bus park very early in the morning, disembarked and walked into waiting passengers. 10 minutes later, the multiple explosions went off and pandemonium broke out. Many believe the bombs must have been planted in the engine of a vehicle, and from the magnitude of the explosions, there may have been more than one explosive, as more than 10 buses were affected. Dalhatu Garba was at the park at the time of the explosions.
Because I did here with this Nyanya terminal bus before now. This is my brother's car. My brother is already dead. So I just there with the person. Before I know, I just hear something burst. Before I know, I just see the person program. Me too, I follow. But the thing happened inside the particular people where they try to enter inside the long buses. I think that the passenger carry the load for his own hand, because the motor he just load from the other side. They try to go out. The thing can't happen to the car. People die over let's say 100 people, because I see plenty of people there.
Rescue operations began about 2 hours later to convey an undetermined number of the injured, many of them with life-threatening wounds, to hospitals. About 4 hospitals in Abuja are now filled up. Abuja residents accuse security operatives of laxity following the attack, as a military barracks and a police checkpoint are not far from the Nyanya motor park. Nyanya, a satellite town, is on the outskirts of Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Nyanya Bus Park is an intra- and intercity bus terminus that conveys people from the suburbs to the city center and to and from the capital. Nigeria's police chief and the national security advisor have both visited the scene of the blasts. A combined team of security operatives are still at the scene of the explosion, and Nigeria's anti-bomb squad is trying to make sure no other bomb was planted.
The headlines and updates from Nigeria's capital Abuja can't stop coming, and the death tolls keep rising. This past few hours saw not one but 2 bomb blasts by yet to be identified attackers. If you're new to the conflict, or even if you are just checking back on after having tuned out of the insurgency story for a while, you may be wondering what exactly is going on. Now, today on Africa Today, we'll be looking at the recent bomb blast at the popular Nyanya Park in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. And we have Biodun Showumi, an analyst with us in the studio. He's always been with us here. You're welcome to Africa Today.
I'm pleased to be here.
Thank you. And for updates about the blast from Abuja, we'll be having TVC News correspondent Eshamomo Imodu join us later on. And if time permits, we'll also have on phone Joseph Ikong, an international security expert on the program. Now, let's start it this way. The bomb blasts used to happen in the northeast of Nigeria, a few times in the center of the country, and now back again. But it seems these trends are insurmountable.
Oh, yes. Given the nature of the problems Nigeria is confronted with today, very few people are optimistic about a quick resolution of the Boko Haram crisis. because it keeps changing forms. The demands keep changing, even though there's this common trend, You have this common thread of wanting to Islamize the whole country. But from the actions of Boko Haram so far, we've seen their operations are limited in scope to the northern part of the country, extended to the capital, Abuja, which is right in the center of the country. So when you actually look at that, you begin to ask yourself, for how long will this continue? And how many more people need to die before a resolution to this problem can be found by the government in Nigeria?
All right, let me ask you personally, when you heard of this blast this morning, what was the first thought that came to your mind?
It was shocking. I had relied, like so many people, even though cautious, optimistic, about the federal government's assurance and reassurance to Nigerians that they are on top of the whole matter. So many people have reasons to believe, given the enormous resources in the hands of the federal government, to assume that probably they are on top of it. But with what happened today, I really sincerely doubt whether the federal government is on top of it. I think we're just lucky on so many other incidents which were averted. Just recently, about less than a week ago, one of the soldiers reportedly, came out in the newspapers to say, look, some commanders are even working with Boko Haram. So when you face the nature of the problem we face now, we can't resolve terrorism or stop terrorist activities without stopping, the causes of terrorism. We have to deal with the causes of terrorism, because the situation we find ourselves now, if you look at the history, when after the crackdown, against the Boko Haram sect in their mosque in Maiduguri, which led to the death of 700 people, that was shocking till today. No single police officer has been brought to book, or any military officer brought to book. Their leader, who was arrested and was handed over by the Nigerian military, to the Nigerian police authority, was killed extrajudicially in the presence of the cameras. And the pictures are all still on the internet. So when you perpetrate, if the Nigerian state perpetrates such a level of crime, until today, no one has been brought to book, we now see Boko Haram again, doing more or less the same thing, killing people on the large scale. I condemn terrorism. It's bad. Not one person deserves to die.
Okay, let's analyze it this way. If I have to ask you personally, from your assessment, if it is true that some commanders are working in tandem with Boko Haram, what is likely? What's the likely thing they want, really? Is it the money, or what? What do they want?
Oh, it's clear. The Boko Haram issue has its own religious agenda around Islamization. That was how they started. They started with targeted killings of government officials, religious leaders, and all that. But later, the character changed to killing school children, killing, helpless civilians, and indiscriminate killings generally. And with that, we heard about the involvement of foreign terrorist organizations, with totally different agenda from the original Boko Haram's agenda, group. We've heard of the links with Al-Qaeda, with the Islamic in Maghreb group also involved in Nigeria. Of course, we also know that the whole dynamics change with what happened in Libya, now leading to free flow of arms into Nigeria. Maybe some people are capitalizing on that to get arms into the country, to make money from the Boko Haram groups. They could be military commanders, I don't know. But the truth of the matter is the scale and the sophistication of the weapons being used, and the mastery of the bombing suggests that there's more to this than just some ragtag militia, carrying out this. And if you bear in mind that a governor in that state actually told the whole world, about the situation, that it seems the Boko Haram militia are better hand. So one is not too far if one thinks, or those who think, that some military commanders, some military commanders may be offering a helping hand to Boko Haram. It could be for monetary purposes, but it could also be for another agenda, which is political.
Okay. All right. We still have All right, we have joining us now is Joseph Ikong, an international security expert. Joseph, it's good to have you on Africa Today. Now, let me ask you this. It seems Boko Haram, although there has not been a clear-cut responsibility taken by any group yet, but from the trends, it seems the insurgency has been taken to the doorstep of government now in Abuja. What's your reaction?
This was expected, and I have always predicted this. The intelligence community is aware of this. Definitely, there was always a plan to attack Abuja. It has happened before, and it is always a trace point of intelligence failure on the part of our national security operators. I want to say that these intelligence failures have been in the areas of command and control, time and space, the resources, administration, and information. So it's a reflection of what has been a total collapse of the intelligence gathering capability within the security apparatus. And as I said always, that national security is too important an issue to be left in the hand of politicians and military careerists and also opportunists, who I call opportunists and soothsayers.
All right, you talked about continuous intelligence failure. What is responsible for this intelligence failure?
The intelligence failure has been in the area of, as someone said there in the studio, the issues of internal contradictions within the security establishment. I remember that, of course, definitely you may have some sympathizers with the insurgents and people who are politically inclined within the security apparatus in the state. And you can also have the political class that have taken up so much interest in making the country very, very ungovernable. So it's a combination of intelligence failure on the part of the military circle, and what I will also say, intellectual failure on the part of those who are handling our national security.
All right. Now, do you think Nigeria is losing the war against terror generally?
No. I don't think so. We are Nigerians not losing the war against the terrorists, and the issue of some statements by governor that the terrorists are better armed than the Nigerian military. I don't think so. I think we have internal contradictions within the system, and long years of military rule and long years of neglect of the security apparatus. You know, terrorism has never been the best form of the fight for any established military hegemony like that of Nigeria. And the hegemons in the system have not really been trained on that. So to adjust to this trend now is what they are passing through. It's a transitional phase, but I want to believe that with time and space on their side and with a complete transformation of the security apparatus, I think Nigeria can still stand as it always does in international security challenges. Where Nigeria has proven its case in all over the world, United Nations operations. So it's only once these internal contradictions are.
All right, Joseph. All right, Joseph. We'll come back to you shortly. Just let's go on a quick break. Africa Today will be right back. Stay with us.
First, let us collectively express our condolences to the bereaved families, those who suffer directly from the loss of these people. Let me also commend the security services for their prompt action. At least a number of them are in the hospital. So we've lost quite a number of people. Condole with our countrymen and women. We continue to work very hard. The issue of Boko Haram attacks is quite an ugly history within this period of our own development. Government is doing everything to make sure that we move our country forward. But these are the unnecessary distractions that are pushing us backward.
So far, we have a total of 71 persons dead, 124 others injured. They are all receiving treatment at various hospitals within and around FCT Metropolis. As I earlier told you, 16 luxurious buses were touched and 24 other vehicles of assorted makes were equally damaged. In order to help families of bereaved, the security agencies are working in collaboration with hospitals. We're equally encouraging most of the hospitals to establish information centers that will help relative friends to be able to get relevant information from those hospitals where either the dead bodies have been deposited or where the injured persons are currently receiving treatment.
All right, thanks for staying with us. Extremists have been threatening to attack Nigeria's capital all the while, which is in the middle of the country and hundreds of miles from their traditional base in the northeast, where they have killed nearly 1,500 people over the last 1-2 years. Monday's blast ripped a hole 4 feet deep, 1.2 meters in the ground of Nyanya Motor Park, some 16 kilometers from the city center, and destroyed more than 30 vehicles, causing secondary explosions as their fuel tanks ignited and burned. Now, we still have Bjorn Shaw meet with us in the studio, and elections are coming. And this is a busy time for the country, those who are preparing for elections, Nigerians putting their minds on voting process and so on. Do you think this is going to cast some doubt as regards how peaceful the election is going to be?
Oh yes, with what happened today, very shocking, mindless killings of defenseless civilians trying to go to their different workplaces. Many people are beginning to wonder, or you are bound to ask yourself, can we really afford to mass people, queuing to vote in elections in many parts of this country? It's no longer some parts, because getting to Abuja, it's worrying. You're talking about half of the country, threatened. And what will be the legitimacy, of any vote done under bomb explosions? Those are critical issues which many people are thinking about. The other side of it is, when you look at the capability of our security forces, who have proved time and time again to be incapable of policing the whole country in a general election, what happens if a huge chunk of those security services are used to control or to manage the menace of Boko Haram so that we all can cast our votes? Basically, what it means with the strength of Nigerian police force, what it means is that we barely would have very little police officers to guide the ballot boxes and prevent those who are bent on rigging the elections from snatching the ballot boxes. It means we also face the risk of public disorder. It's really very worrying. And deploying the military will not necessarily be a solution, because they are not trained to police the country. They are trained to fight wars against enemies. They are not trained to deal with civilians, work with politicians or with political parties or with the INEC. They are not trained in all that. So how are we going to deal with this situation while at the same time, ensure that we have a peaceful and free democratic election? It's a big worrying thing. There's a big question mark around.
All right, but as it is now, does it seem that the Nigerian police or the Nigerian security apparatus is overstretched already as it is?
The fact of the matter is they're highly overstretched. They're doing very wonderful work. What people have failed to realize is that it's not about half of the population of the Nigerian police force, which some said is about 400,000, which is highly so low to police a country of 170 million people. Half of them are deployed in non-operational work. Some of them are actually with the politicians protecting public office holders or VIPs who are not even public office holders. So when you've taken away more than half of your security agency, chaps, what then is left for the rest of the country? So they're highly under-resourced. They're highly underpopulated, so we don't have enough. Even if you combine the entire Nigerian police force, we don't have enough to police Lagos State alone, effectively. So when you now talk about, Lagos State needs 2 million policemen to police the population, if you have to go by global standards. And how many? We have only about 400,000 police officers to police 170 million people. So it's really worrying, and government can do a lot, by straight away recruiting police officers, training them, mop up even the unemployed youths, get them to do something rather than allowing Boko Haram to feast on the issue of corruption and the issue of youth unemployment.
Okay, we'll come back to this. Now, joining us on phone is Eshomomo Imodu, TVC News political correspondent, joining us from Abuja. Now, Eshomomo, it's good to have you on Africa Today. Now, what is the latest? Can you give us the mood in Abuja right now? What is it like?
Yeah, I think by now people have returned to their various homes, and I guess now they're beginning to count their losses, because in the early part of the day after the bomb blast, a lot of people could not really trace if their loved ones, their families were involved. So if by this night those people did not return to their various homes, then the situation will be there that probably they were also caught up in that dastardly act that occurred in the early hours of the day. And it leaves a bitter taste on our tongues, because it happened just because of the seat of power, and that sends a very, very dangerous signal to most Nigerians. If you also recall that just about 2 weeks ago, there was an attempted jailbreak at the Directorate of State Security, and that was very close to the seat of power, to Aso Rock. And this is happening again, just very close to the seat of power. So the worry now is, are the people really safe? Are they safe to go out, do the business? Are they safe at the motor park? Now, the motor park is a place that you thought that such things shouldn't happen, and if people will go to the motor park to board buses of vehicles at various destination workplaces, and they will make it this kind of sudden death, then the fear is just on the rise in town now. That where else can people stay that they will presume will be safe for them to discharge?
All right, Eshomomo, let me ask you, how are the hospitals coping with the survivors right now?
Yeah. A lot of the hospitals are quite filled up with people that sustain various degrees of injuries, and the government hospitals are filled up, and even some private hospitals. I think by tomorrow, the government will definitely realize that. Probably they went around some of the government hospitals. That was why they gave us the figure that 71 dead and 124 injured. I guess by the time they visit the various private hospitals, the number of casualties might actually double, because the reality on ground was what we saw on ground far exceed the statistics they gave to us. So probably by tomorrow, if they begin to visit the private hospital, they'll have the reality on their hands and be able to upgrade the statistics they've given us so far. But I think those hospitals are coping. But if you also remember that in this country we have hospitals that don't have facilities, that are not functioning very well, then you wonder that how much can they do, because people suffer various degrees of even burns. So how much can these hospitals in Nigeria really cope, suffering from lack of finance?
All right, Eshomomo, thank you very much for your time on Africa Today. That's so much time can permit us. Now, as we wind down this program, what steps do you think government should take in being able to handle this issue?
Yeah, what is very clear is that we perhaps lack the capacity to fight a guerrilla warfare. The conventional warfare, yes, but not guerrilla warfare. We need military men to be trained in how to fight this insurgent. Basically, they need foreign help. The other issue is you can't tackle terrorism without tackling the causes of terrorism. Two issues are the major issues being used by Boko Haram, to win converts, to win young youths. One is the issue of corruption. Government needs to tackle corruption. Without tackling corruption, no way. The other issue, which is stretched right into the heart of the whole matter, is poverty. And you cannot deal with poverty without educating the youths, without creating industries, without creating employment for the youths. Otherwise, they are very easy. They believe that an Islamic state will wipe away poverty, as if there are no countries in the world, that are Islamic, and you still have poverty or corrupt. But that's their belief. But we need to seriously tackle the issue of corruption and the issue of poverty pervading the whole society and create employment for the youth. And that is what I mean by we need to tackle the causes of terrorism. If we don't do that and ensure we have a just society where no matter who you are, you will be taken through and processed through the criminal justice system. If we still continue to have a situation where police officers killed with impunity, we will continue to fuel this kind of mindless criminal thing that we're seeing today.
All right, but is there an end in sight to all of this? Do you think the government on ground now, it doesn't matter whether it is at the national level or even at the regional level, as the case may be, do you think there's end in sight to all this from the actions they're supposed to take?
I can't see it, but I think it is possible. Government needs to engage the leaders of this group. After all, they've been talking to some people. We need to look for a way of finding an accommodation, on how to deal with their demands, on how to seriously tackle the issue of poverty, in our country, affecting everybody. Without doing that, we won't be able to stop it, because it's not enough to stop these youths who, one way or the other, believe that an Islamic Nigeria will solve the issue of poverty and corruption. So government seriously needs to start dialogue. On a serious note, start dialogue, with the credible leader. Well, the leaders, they know who they are talking to already. They need to be able to talk to them and then come to an agreement. While at the same time, also protect Nigerians. Okay. And without doing that and addressing the issue of corruption, I don't think we'll be making any progress.
All right. Thank you very much, Biodun Sholmi, for coming on Africa Today.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We also thank Joseph E. Kong for joining us earlier on, as well as Shamomo Imodu, our correspondent from Abuja. Now, following Monday's attack, survivors screamed in anguish, and the stench of burning fuel and flesh hung over the site, where billows of black smoke rose as firefighters worked to put out the fires. Reporters saw rescue workers and police gathering body parts as ambulances rushed the wounded to the hospitals. State television had broadcast calls for blood donations. Security personnel battled to belatedly cordon off the area as a bomb detonation team was coming and combing it for secondary explosions. Now, thousands of bystanders gathered, ignoring warnings to stay away. And while violence has torn the northeast, where Boko Haram had killed thousands, the capital in the middle of Africa's most populous country has been relatively peaceful for now. But for how long? That's our show for today. Watch previous episodes of the show on YouTube at TVC Africa Today. Until the next one, I am Okwoche. And always remember, this is Africa. Bye for now.